Hello and welcome. In this video I show you step by step how I draw a butterfly on a flower. I draw with charcoal pencils and graphite powder. I'll show you lots of tricks that you can use quickly and easily. As I want to have a white frame around my picture, I tape all four sides with adhesive tape. For this I use an adhesive tape that can be removed without leaving any residue and without damaging my paper. Once all the pages have been taped, I trace the edges again with my finger. This way I make sure that there are no air bubbles and that the tape sticks firmly to the paper. My motif today is a butterfly sitting on a flower. I have already transferred this onto the paper in advance. There are various ways to do this. If this is of interest to you, and you would like to see how I do it, please let me know. Maybe I'll make a separate video about it. By the way, I don't use expensive special paper for this picture, but paint on a thick white cardboard paper. I use graphite powder for the background. You can buy this on the internet, or in art stores. But you can also easily make it yourself. If you want to try it yourself, but don't want to spend money on it, then you can rub a pencil against a piece of sandpaper. The finer your sandpaper is, the finer the graphite dust will be. You can then pick up the graphite dust either with a paper wiper, a sponge, a brush, or with your own fingers. So you pick up the dust and transfer it to the paper. Rub the dust into the paper with small circular movements, so that the dust sticks to the paper. This painting technique has the great advantage that very large areas can be painted in an extremely short time. As I have rubbed the graphite dust into my butterfly, I now take an eraser and erase the dust again. If I were to paint my entire picture with pencils only, I wouldn't have to do this, I could just paint on top of it. Because if the surface is painted too heavily with graphite, it seals the paper surface, and you can no longer paint over it with charcoal pencils. Because charcoal simply does not stick to graphite. Therefore, if you use this multi-mix technique, always start with charcoal pencils first. If you wish, you can then paint over the charcoal with graphite or a pencil. The difference between pencils and charcoal pencils lies not only in the color. Although there are different shades of charcoal pencils, the charcoal is always black. With all pencils, even if you take the softest and darkest pencil and paint with it, the color of the pencil is never black, but always shiny silver. For erasing I use either a normal eraser or an electric eraser. The electric eraser has the advantage that it removes graphite and carbon from the paper much better than a normal eraser. If you have not yet had any experience with electric erasers, these are available in different eraser thicknesses. Slightly thicker and very fine. The finer and thinner the eraser, the more precisely you can remove the color from the paper. With the cheap electric erasers, you have to keep the power button pressed all the time. This takes some getting used to, especially at the beginning when you are erasing. Pencil or charcoal drawings smudge very easily. That's why I put a foil under my hand. That way I don't smudge the paint with my wrist or arm. Now I start coloring in my butterfly with my charcoal pencils. I use charcoal pencils in 3 degrees of hardness. The first charcoal pencil is very hard and paints a light shade of black. The middle charcoal pencil is slightly darker. And the softest charcoal pencil paints the darkest shade. I start my pictures with the lightest black and work my way up step by step to the darkest black. As you can see, I only press very lightly on the paper with the charcoal pencil. It's not so important whether all the areas are hatched exactly or remain white, because I'll smudge the color with a paper wiper afterwards. I have a little tip for you. If you hold your pencil further back when painting, your hand will work from the wrist. It's not so strenuous for your hand and it's less stressful on your joints. I'm about to blend the charcoal with a paper wiper. However, my paper wiper from a previous drawing is really dirty. So I take a file or sandpaper and rub the paper wiper clean again first. Only then can I start blending. I now blend the charcoal color with this cleanly rubbed paper wiper. As a result, the paper wiper absorbs some of the charcoal. With this charcoal-soaked paper wiper, I can now paint very light shades of black into the white butterfly wing. In this way, I create a few lighter and darker accents in my butterfly. If some areas have become too dark due to the smudging of the charcoal color, I lighten them again by inserting my eraser. The resulting eraser residue is either blown away by me, or wiped away with a brush. Now I start the whole process all over again. And basically, that's the big secret to creating great works of art with charcoal pencils. First of all, you apply charcoal to the paper. You start with the lightest charcoal color and blend it onto the paper. This allows you to paint lighter and darker areas, creating shadows and set some accents. If the area has become too dark, due to the smudging of the charcoal, lighten it again with the eraser. Repeat this whole process, over and over again. Always work from light to dark. This means that over time the picture becomes darker and darker, because you change the charcoal pencil to a darker shade. If you repeat this whole process often enough, the picture will get more and more depth, and will finally look really realistic, or even three-dimensional. But there is another way, to improve the overall result even further. With this method you can add even more highlights to your picture. Before you start, I would recommend fixing your picture with a fixative first. When the fixative is completely dry, you can add the very last highlights and light effects with a white gel pen. Can you see the difference between before and after on my butterfly? Now that I don't want to add anything more to the butterfly for the time being, I'll turn my attention to the flower. Here too, I repeat the whole process from the beginning. First, I paint again with the lightest charcoal pencil and blend the color, bringing out the light and dark areas. Any areas that have become too dark are removed again with the eraser. Then I switch to the slightly darker charcoal color and blend again. Again, any areas that have become too dark are removed with the eraser. And finally I use the darkest black. Finally, the white gel pen is also used for the flower. Since all painted pictures with graphite and charcoal colors smudge very easily, I recommend spraying the finished picture with a fixative. This is a solution that is used to protect the colors from the effects of light or damage caused by touching. By spraying with the fixative, the color is glued to the paper and is thus protected. It took me about 6 hours to paint my butterfly and the flower. It also took me well over 10 hours to edit the video, create the soundtrack and add the subtitles. I would really appreciate it if you would honor my work with a thumbs up or a comment. This will help me to be found better on YouTube, and I will stay motivated to create more videos. My personal opinion on designing and creating new images is that it doesn't matter how you get your result, what material you use, or how much time you need for something. Ultimately, it's the end result that counts. And there are no limits to your creativity when painting. I hope you've picked up lots of useful tips, and I'll see you in the next video.